Alright, test 1 2 1 2, test 1 2 1 2. Just about time to get started. I was playing some of the music from the soundtrack in the background, but it looks like they're going to block that. They may end up blocking this sound, but I will be recording it locally as well. In fact, I'm glad I thought of that. A little stuffed up here, fighting a sinus infection, but I've got to bring you guys the good stuff with Dune just around the corner. So, let me just make sure I have all my supplies. And then this relatively epic, if low budget, 3-part miniseries from 2000 is quite good. I've not watched it in a while, but I remember it pretty well, and I certainly know the material well. So, basically, I'm going to talk for a couple minutes, but I really want to jump right in. And as it appears with the new movie, they're going to get right into the action pretty quickly, which is the case in the book. So, in terms of telling my story about Dune and how influential it was growing up, and then the new movie and this, I'm going to pepper in as we have time. But the early scenes of this are, the keys to everything. So, we'll jump right in after a short intro. And hope you stick around, because this is really great for a low-budget 2000 sci-fi production. It's so superior to the 1984 in terms of loyalty, in terms of vision, in terms of minimalism, but with a very cool design, use of color, Art Deco, and stuff like that. So I'm going to check my local recording, leave the stream going, and then we're going to talk about some Dune. Epic, if basically. So, alright, so we're going to do a quick Twitch sound test here, and then we are going to get started. Just a minute. So I can do one final. Yeah, that's super loud with the music here, so this will be a good test. This is one of the cool, early parts, how the navigators, we'll get back to this, looked, that I was like, okay, they kind of know what they're doing.
Household stuff.
Alright, here's the straight up
Make sure she has everything she
shout out Mapes.
I'll join you after the briefing.
Okay. So far so good. So these are auto CCs. but it
Men are
looks
waiting.
pretty good.
Me?
William Hurt,
Right
who's the
now?
big name, of course, is going to
It's
be
time you
my
participated.
biggest complaint, or at least I won't have much to say about him.
I've had the girls sand scrub these vaults.
All right.
Within a millimeter of their frames.
Alright. Alright. So I'm going to check my local recording one last time, and then we are going to get started.
Wait, milady.
Basically, minutes. How the navigators,
Lady or
like early parts, how the navigators, we'll get back to this. Good.
Me?
William Hurt,
Right
who's the
now?
big name, of course, is going to
it's
be
time you
my
participated.
biggest complaint, or at least I won't have much to say about him. Alright, let us see where this goes. It's kind of a big project for me. I've done a commentary in a while, and this is a big one, and it's an important one. So, as we all know, IMDb is annoyingly full of ads and so forth, so I'm going to wiki up Dune 2021. Trying to get the window just right here. Alright. And then let's get Frank Herbert's Dune, which is a nice way to call it the miniseries. There it is, Frank Herbert's Dune. And sure, why don't we open Dune novel? So I will be very well hydrated here, which is important. So, just so you guys get a sense of the process, and because it's been a while since I've done a full-length commentary, but especially how big this is and how important Dune is to me, and I think is going to be to the world, and I think the movie's going to be really good, or at least cause a lot of discussion. Let me just ride with me for the first like 15-20 minutes. I'll get in my groove, and by the time shit hits the fan and the good guys keep getting kicked in the balls over and over again, as I like to say, I'll be good to go. Alright, so here's what I got, just so you guys know, other than the website, other than the wiki sites, which I mostly use for casting and box office numbers and so forth. Well, first some tech stuff. So I'm streaming this off of YouTube, but while this was uploaded somewhat recently, it has enough views that you would think it would be banned, but it's impossible to get, so it's one of those almost public domain type things. So I'm using a Studio OBS, that people use to stream, and I'm gonna be just Firefoxing it into my stream. You could see my little image there. But since I want to release this as a podcast, let me start the recording here. Since I'm going to release this as a podcast as well, I'm going to be keeping the sound a little bit lower. But I want people to be able to hear the movie because they're not really going to be able to watch the movie or want to watch the movie. And the CCs, although they're auto-generated, seem to be pretty good. I'm broadcasting this in 720, 30 frames per second. That's partially because this is 720 at best. And I don't really want any hiccups, and that's not really the point. So it'll be interesting to see if Twitch mutes the audio post after the fact. It'll be interesting to see if what happens when I put it on YouTube, but I don't really care because I'm a podcaster at heart. Alright, so here's what I got. I, of course, have the actual Dune novel. I own a record number of Dune novels. I believe I own at least 6 or 7 distinct copies of Dune. This is the most recent mass market paperback, and I haven't marked it up, of course, but gotta have that at least. I have multiple Kindles and iPads, and they have their advantages. And so, for the moment, I'm using my Kindle Fire for Dune, because I can skip through pages pretty quickly. So, we have that going for us. I do have Dune Messiah, but that's going to be a separate podcast. As Brian Herbert, Frank Herbert's son, has said, most people would agree whether they like it or not. It's most misunderstood of the books, and it's actually my favorite. But it's my favorite for the same reason Matrix Reloaded is my favorite Matrix movie. And there's going to be a lot of Matrix connections going, finally, the correct way. I, of course, have the beautiful Zendaya as playing Chani. And while Zendaya is about the most perfect casting for the love/protector/co-lead, Chani of Siege Tabor, and is going to have amazing chemistry with the equally awesome Timothée Chalamet. And she's perfect both in terms of credits, looks, skills, and just all-around popularity. I'm going to talk about how relatively good Paul Atreides' casting is in this miniseries, who's an unknown that I don't know if he's done anything else. And especially in your upper right here, the amazing look and accent of Chani, who's not a traditional beauty, but has an unbelievable intensity that really pulls it out of Paul, just like Zendaya is going to pull it out of Chalamet, and that's how it is in the story, with Chani pulling, Paul's not a big macho Captain America superhero. Well, he's sort of Captain America, but he's not a superhero. He's very sensitive. He's vulnerable, and Chani has to protect him both physically and emotionally. And so I thought it'd be cool to juxtapose the images from the 2000 with what's coming. Now, I'm going to talk about the casting of Frank Herbert's Dune. Actually, you know what? Hold on one sec, guys. Yeah, I think I'm gonna use my iPad for information rather than my browser. But you know, I mean, let's see. Let's see, here's the 2021 film. There we go. Let me just save that. And let me also save DUNE novel. Now, how do I get to my reading list is the question. Alright, saved. Reading lists. DUNE. There we go. So, obviously, and then I want to just jump right into this film. Obviously, with acclaimed director Denis Villeneuve, who I'll talk about more, because I've had mixed feelings about him in the past, but have kind of thought he's the perfect guy for this particular property. It seems to be the case so far. But with Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Dave Bautista, and Jason Momoa and Javier Bardem, who I think are going to steal the movie other than the two kid leads, if you will. They smartly released this internationally before here because Europeans and international audiences tend to get this philosophical stuff. It'll be interesting to see how America receives it. So I don't actually want to talk too much early on about the new film. I want to talk about this 2000 it's technically called Frank Herbert's Dune, as you can see there. It's a 3-part miniseries, although, when you have the DVD, you pretty much watch it all at once. I'll, of course, record this in 3 parts, I assume. We'll see how it goes. It was written and directed by John Harrison. Alec Newman played Paul Atreides. William Hurt, of course, is the big name, plays Leto. That will be played by Oscar Isaac. Of course, Timothy Chalamet is playing Paul Atreides. Lady Jessica, played by Saskia Reeves. And then a bunch of other names I don't really know, who are all being played by huge names that we all know for the new one, which doesn't mean it will be better or great. Now, for a running time of 265 minutes, 3-part miniseries over 4 hours, $20 million budget, it is a really amazing accomplishment. And I'm really going to hone in on what looks and works great in this film. The bad green screens and spotty special effects, we can, make a comment about, but there's really no reason to linger on it, to be honest with you. Because it's $20 million on the Sci-Fi Network in 2000. It should be mentioned that they followed this up with a Children of Dune, which combined Dune Messiah, Book 2, and Children of Dune, Book 3. They replaced this Jessica, who, I guess I should look up what she's done. Filmography. She's done a lot of TV. can hear my headphones. I gotta turn that down. And she's a London drama person. And one of the reasons this works is because they got some great theater folks from England, and they got some really interesting looking and sounding people, I think from like Central and Eastern Europe. We'll have to see. The major standout in terms of an actor that is going to look familiar, even though you can't put the face to the name, or vice versa, is, of course, where is he? Ian McNeice as Baron Harkonnen is so deliciously evil. And while everything is a little colorful and comical in this version, we'll talk about the principle I've talked about before, which is make it funny, make it fun, make it cool. If you don't have the money or the cast or the time to do what Villeneuve is doing with, theoretically all the Dune movies and the TV series and so forth, then just make it interesting and quirky. He's absolutely fabulous. He's also a music and drama guy from London, is McNeice. I just want to introduce him early because when he hits the screen, introducing the bad guy and his horrible sons, it goes to a whole new level. He's been in a ton of films over the years, including Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. Oh, that's funny. Is he still acting? Yeah, he stopped a few years ago. He's not a young guy. He's been on Doctor Who. I mean, again, great drama talent, TV talent from England. And then we've got William Hurt, who I never love. He always seems like he walks through his roles. I know he's won awards and he has gravitas or whatever, but he does nothing for me, whether in the Marvel Cinematic Universe or here. And so, spoiler alert, when he gets killed early on in the big betrayal that sends Jessica and Paul into the desert and moves the story forward, it's not that sad. Whereas when Oscar Isaac dies, spoiler alert, early on, it's going to be much sadder. And Julie Cox as Princess Irulan, who's the one they want to marry to Paul, theoretically, the Emperor's daughter. We will see, but I remember her being quite amazing. But the one whose just intensity completely represents and manifests the Fremen that you read as a kid is, of course, Barbora Koditova as Chani. And yes, she's indeed Czech. She's the daughter of an actor. She's been in not that many films over the years, about one every 2 or 3 years between 1991 and 2010. But even though this is a $20 million, somewhat cheesy, low budget, underrated, underseen miniseries, if anyone could be born for a role in a property like this, it's definitely her. And I definitely had a huge crush on her, just because of her. I mean, the blue eyes work great in this, and we're going to talk about how a lot of the little things like the costuming, the staging, the blue eyes, and so forth, you can even see in these pictures how great the eyes from 2000 are up here. You look down here, we think the eyes are going to be good on Zendaya and Mr. Chalamet, but we will have to see. And I'll talk about some of the other actors as we go along. But anyway, so there was a Children of Dune sequel, which I won't talk about too much here, where they replaced Lady Jessica with Susan Sarandon, who's another actress. I mean, I like her more than William Hurt, but I'm not like a big Susan Sarandon fanboy or whatever. Sarandon, whatever the hell her name is. And she's, I mean, maybe it's just in comparison to this Lady Jessica, who totally works for me, and I think is going to be Rebecca Ferguson is going to be more like this version. But it was again a celebrity casting that was just distracting. It was not right at all for the character. She's got an American accent. It just doesn't work. But in Children of Dune, we get the twin children who end up being like Luke and Leia. Not a surprise. I'll talk about the Star Wars stealing, or at least borrowing a lot from this. The Luke and Leia, the twin children of Muad'Dib, or Paul Atreides, and Chani, Leto II, and his sister Agamina. And it happens that Leto II Atreides, who is sort of stronger, or they decide was going to be sort of the stronger and take on the more dangerous stuff of the twins, the first major role of a strapping and very charismatic young man named James McAvoy. And I had no idea who he was. I don't think I saw him in a movie until a bunch of years later in X-Men or something. But I just remember, if Chani in this movie jumped off the screen with her feminine intensity, that mischievous, charismatic, sexy, fun, instantly three-dimensional smile and looks that we get from McAvoy, he had it almost immediately. I remember so distinctly just not liking Children of Dune until the two of them came in. There are some other redeeming parts for that, but I don't want to talk about it right now because, this first one, the main story, Frank Herbert's Dune, is, I mean, I saw a headline while I was doing a little pre-research for this that was like, it's the best we've got so far. So the worst people say about this is it's the best Dune we've got so far. And, people who really love the story and the mythology and don't care about a green screen with sand on the floor, trying to project a giant desert in a tiny studio, which will be so obvious. It doesn't matter. It's not what this is about. Dune is not an action story. It's 6 books that are thick with political and character drama and a ton of philosophical insight, both in the sort of epigrams that are beginning of each chapter, written by Frank Herbert, although, the voice of some religious leader or, Paul's journals or whatever, and implicit in the story itself. And while this is the best-selling and considered the all-time greatest, at least of our generation, science fiction book, and I promise we're going to get into the commentary now. I'll try not to do too much Matrix stuff and Star Wars stuff. Star Wars sort of copies, character and visual things, like the desert planet with the twins and the Messiah children who are really the Messiahs and not the Messiah, everyone thinks Anakin, but it's the children of Anakin, and here it's sort of the same thing. Desert planet and prescience and self-fulfilling prophecies and, some great stuff in Star Wars. But if you listen to my Matrix Reloaded podcast, if you're Bizzlecast listeners, there's a few movies I really, really like that other people are not crazy about. But the one that I believe objectively is a phenomenal movie and better than the one that everyone else thinks is The Matrix Reloaded. And there are some similarities. While the first Matrix was mind-blowing with the human batteries and escaping from the Matrix and what is real and blah, 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 ultimately it was a skin-deep exploration of reality that didn't explore the possibility that they were still in a Matrix that's not real, and what is real even outside the Matrix. And then there was some gunplay, and then he's the one, and then it's over. Matrix Reloaded took the philosophy to a whole new level and was very misunderstood. Dune Messiah, equally, the second book, which is a lot shorter than this and the other books, was equally misunderstood. However, just like The Matrix 1, whether they knew there was going to be other ones or not, they teased a couple huge things in The Matrix 1 that completely, everything that was good about 2 and even 3 was set up in The Matrix 1 or teased, whether it was on purpose or not, conscious or subconscious by the Wachowskis. Of course, the main one was Agent Smith, being not quite your regular agent who wanted out of being an agent and was sort of disgusted by humanity and had feelings and anger and hatred and nihilism in a way you wouldn't expect from just a program who's, you know, a Gestapo agent essentially, as Neo says. And so the Smith virus was perfectly set up. And with him being the 0 and Neo being the 1 in other things. But Dune even way more because Herbert had already planned, you know, in a lengthy series that he wasn't able to even finish. We'll talk about in the later podcasts. He got 6 books instead of the 7 or 8 that he had wanted. All the major themes, but also all the major mechanics having to do with spice and prescience, and you know, basically a extremely strong critique of Euro-American imperialism, predicting the oil crisis, predicting Islamic extremism and jihad, but the quote-unquote Muslim terrorists or the Fremen end up being the good guys, both in terms of the storytelling and in terms of like morally what's going on. You think this is going to be the white messiah story where the white guy goes into the desert with the fake religion and he uses it to manipulate the Fremen/Muslims. It's not what happens at all. I've been beating that drum heavily online for people to give this a chance, and that's not really what's going on in this movie. And so I'm going to talk about the cool aesthetics in this that they get right with their small budget. I'm going to talk about some of the great performances from actors that I mostly didn't know then and mostly haven't seen since then. Again, other than the giant Ian McNeice as Baron Harkonnen, as just as English theater and TV and film actor. Most of these people, nothing about, never saw again. And as we'll see as a tease, and we'll get into the movie here, you know, they set up this huge team around Paul the Prince, you know, his various protectors, and teachers, and doctors, and the mentats, you know, the human computers, Thufir Hawat, Duncan Idaho, and Gurney Halleck, who are sort of his military/moral instructors, and most of them die or apparently die pretty early on, and so all of a sudden it's him and his mom in the desert, and you don't know what's going on. And it was such an exciting feeling as a kid, and hopefully we can revisit some of this here with, I think, it's going to be solid to very good performances and an excellent soundtrack. I think with that, we should get started here in a minute. So let me just make sure I got all my hydration devices. And we'll do a quick sound test, and then we will get going on this. I'm super pumped, if you can't tell. I'm actually going to start and stop the stream just to make sure everything is copacetic, and then we will get going. Be back in one sec.